A big hello to everybody and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to talk about what I think is one of the best deals in photography for people who love photographs, not necessarily people who love spec sheets. Today's video is going to be a little shorter than usual because I've been away from my home city. I had to go up to Tirana, the capital of Albania, to go to the US Embassy to get my passport renewed, and I took this camera along with me. And no, it's not my beloved Ricoh GR III, it's actually this. It is the Sony rx100 Mark I. Now this is the time when I'm supposed to read off the spec sheets and do a bunch of product shots of this camera, but look, this is a 10-year-old camera. If I read you the specs, you're not going to be that impressed. Instead, what I want to do is I want to show you a series of photographs, and I want to let the photographs speak for the capabilities of the camera. And I suspect that this is probably a healthier way of doing camera reviews anyway. Side note, if you'd prefer to read this review and take a better look at the photos, you can see all of that on my website. There's a link down in the description. I will briefly touch on the specs just for people who maybe have never heard of this or have never given any serious thought. So this is the Sony rx100. It is the first of 7 generations of this camera. I used to own number 7, but actually sold it to buy into the Micro Four Thirds system. This camera came out in 2012. It has a 1-inch sensor. It has a zoom lens with a variable aperture going from 1.8 on the short end at 28 millimeters all the way to 4.9 at the long end, 100 millimeters. And although it's largely unimpressive by today's standards, this camera was kind of revolutionary for the picture quality that it provided in such a small body back when it came out. The resolution is 20.2 megapixels, which surprisingly is actually quite capable. And it has a 3-inch LCD screen on the back. It doesn't tilt, it doesn't rotate. The newer versions do, but mine doesn't. This one's all scratched up and it's got that weird bubbling, peeling issue that a lot of Sony point-and-shoot cameras get. So all the pictures that you're going to see in this review, they were taken by me over the last year with the rx100 Mark I. I love this camera for a couple reasons. Number one, it's cheap. Number two, it is very versatile. You got a 28 millimeter to 100 millimeter range. You can do a lot with that. You can get up close, widen your aperture, get those low light shots, and get a little telephoto in there as well. The third reason that I love it is because it's compact. It will fit in your pocket. It's not quite as compact as my Ricoh GR III, which is why I switched, but there isn't a massive difference. All right, so let's look at some more photos and I'll talk through them, talk about the camera's prowess as a photograph making machine. So this first one is just on the streets of Tirana. There's a gelateria. They sell this gelato all year round in these little stands and you can just buy it off the street. It's dangerous if you're trying to cut calories in your life. This next two are of the mosque that is right downtown off of Skanderbeg Square, which is kind of the main central point of Tirana. And then a couple just city snaps. There's a really interesting skyscraper. It's blue and green. It's one of the newer constructions in town. And then there's a lot of street art in Tirana, which I think makes it a really beautiful city. Some people think it makes it look cheap, you know, or like graffiti, but I really like it. This obviously is a mural in support of Ukraine. I took this picture just because Pikachu's in it, and I mean, why wouldn't you take a picture of Pikachu? There's about 1 million coffee bars in downtown Tirana. I've got a shot of the cafe there, and then there's a stream that runs down through one of the main boulevards. These electrical boxes, I think they have something to do with like the traffic lights. I think the students from the university paint these, and they definitely look more interesting than just a metal box. Angry birds and this little couple. This next photo is taken in a park. It's an origami dog and an origami pig, but they were made out of metal. There's a lot of outdoor markets, as I've mentioned in some of my other videos, and this is just one of them. It looks like he's selling maybe chickpeas and dried apricots and pecans. Bayama is almonds. Those aren't pecans, those are almonds. I took this just to show you what you can accomplish with the rx100, even with moving subjects and with the autofocus. Right, so this bee, I took this shot probably about 12 feet away from the bee itself, out of my kitchen window. And this little hornet was flying around. He kept going in and out of that hole. He was probably hoping he'd be able to sting me or something, but obviously he's in flight. His wings are going quite quickly. If you crop this in to 100%, you can still see that there's a tremendous amount of detail in the bee. You can see his antenna, his legs, some of the little hairs on him, the design of the yellow on his tail or his thorax or whatever you call that, I can't remember. And then, you know, his wings obviously are flapping quite quickly, but retain some detail. And then if you crop in even more to about 200%, you can see that he's still looking pretty good. Obviously, there's a little bit of a loss of detail, which would happen on just about any camera, but I mean, how many people are really cropping a photo that much? Every once in a while, sure, but 1-inch sensor, variable aperture, you can still do a lot here. Some flowers in bloom, a ship here on Vlora's old beach. So this is back in my hometown. And this is what the beach looks like when it's not the season, when it's not like June, July, August. The beach is pretty much empty. You can go, you have it to yourself. It's usually obviously a little bit colder, but it's quite enjoyable. I walk there quite a bit. Some acorns that have fallen. I like the textures and the color that are here with the sticks and the smoothness of the acorns. And then out in the bay, several boats. There's this really interesting boat here that's done up like Pirates of the Caribbean, and it has this giant Davy Jones head on the back of it. I really enjoy the red from this photo. This rose turned out really nice, the yellow and the red in the background there. And then we have the gummy bear. This, I suppose, shows off a little bit of the dynamic range. Let's speak to the dynamic range really quickly. Obviously, it's not the best in the world. It's not going to compete with like a A7 III or A7 IV. But I will say that I actually think it's better than the dynamic range on my Olympus. I love you, Olympus, you know I do, but the dynamic range on the Sony is a little bit better than the Olympus, and I've been able to pull up a surprising amount of detail, both pulling it down from the highlights and pulling it up from the shadows. You get a little bit of detail in both of those, and it makes it really usable. And I wanted to use this as an image quality test. I wanted to crop into 100%, and there you see it. Obviously, there's detail in the petals, in the insect itself, on the shell. You can see the little bumps and the texture there, the hairs on the back of him. You can even see his eyes. I mean, is that not satisfactory image quality? I feel like that's pretty good for a camera that'll cost you about $150. And then, apparently all of my image quality tests are of insects. I didn't realize that. I guess they're just interesting to me, but zoom in here, look at the stripes in his eyes. Look at the detail on his armor, or whatever you call that, his shell. The details in the wings, right? It's all there. Now, this motorcycle, I took this just because it's beautiful. It's a Ducati. How European. Do I want one? Yes, I do. And so just feast your eyes on that for a second. I've got a couple seagull pictures in here, and the reason is not because I like seagulls, because they're kind of annoying, but hey, if you want to do some wildlife photography now and then, this is an autofocus shot, right? I was probably using single point autofocus. I got this bird in flight. It doesn't look too bad, does it? And then the next one also, these birds taking off, it looks like probably from trying to steal some of the fishermen's fish. That's not bad for a 1-inch sensor and a variable aperture. Some nice colors on the water as the sun was going down here. It's about Christmas time. So this was shot in low light, zoomed in, probably about 60 millimeters, I want to say. This artist painting Santa Claus here turned out pretty well. This was in Tirana, probably shot at 28 millimeters at the maximum aperture of 1.8, and you're retaining a good amount of detail. Obviously a little bit of motion blur on that bike. Now, one of the other reasons I really love this camera is because I think it takes great black and white JPEG images. It has a picture profile, or I think they call it a creative style, and it's just called black and white. And I love the images that it produces. So a lot of times I will take this out and use it as a dedicated black and white camera, and I don't have to edit the JPEGs at all. So I want to show you some of the results from that. Most of these images are not edited in any way. They're straight out of camera. I like a lot of contrast to my black and whites. That might not be you, so obviously this is subjective, but let's take a look at some of these. Now, is this the greatest camera that you can buy in 2022 or 2023? The answer is, of course, no. But the reasons I love this camera were, as I stated, it's compact, it's versatile. Another thing I love is I don't have to baby it. It's already beat up, it's already scratched. You know, it's not super expensive, so I toss it in a bag, I toss it in my car, I toss it everywhere, throw it wherever, you know, and it's like I don't have to worry about it, and that alone is a really nice feeling. And then what I love the most about it is I feel like I'm getting solid images out of it. And for $150, something this compact and useful, like if you're just trying to capture memories and you don't want something that's going to be obtrusive and not going to get in your way, and that you can just tuck away whenever you walk into those museums like I did where you weren't allowed to take photos, this is a great one. So look, let the photos speak for themselves. And I will say, all of these photos that I've taken, they were exported from Lightroom at only 90% quality. So you're actually not even seeing the full detail that the camera captured. This is only 90% of that full detail. So if you're satisfied with these, you're definitely going to be satisfied with the real thing. And if this is kind of something you're in the market for, or this might be something that you're interested in getting, I would say don't hesitate to buy any of the Sony RX100 cameras, because I've had the 7 and I've had the 1, and I've been pleased with both of them. The sweet spot might actually be the 3, because the 3 has the pop-up EVF, which I will admit, that can come in handy, especially when it's really sunny outside. So that is my quick photo review of the Sony RX100 Mark I. Am I happy with it? Yes, I am. And so don't be afraid to maybe go into the depths of eBay and search for some of these older cameras, because if you're just interested in photo quality, a lot of these can do a really good job for you. So all right, I'll see you guys hopefully next week. Remember, all these images are on my website, and I've got a short written review on this camera on there. There's a link down in the description. So I'll see you guys hopefully next week.